All right, let's dive into one of the most detailed and honestly fascinating texts from the ancient world, the purification rituals in the book of Leviticus. We're going to break down these incredibly specific instructions for how people, and even their homes, could be declared clean and rejoin the community. It's a process that tells us so much about how they saw the world.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the big picture problem, then we'll walk through the step-by-step rituals for a person, including the offerings they had to make, and then, this is where it gets really interesting, we'll see how those same ideas were applied to a plague in a house, a process that could end in complete demolition. Finally, we'll see what the text itself says about the whole point of these laws.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Imagine you're living back then. Certain skin diseases meant total isolation. You were cut off from everyone. So the huge question was, if you got better, how did you prove it? How did you get officially certified as clean so you could finally go back to your family and your life? I mean, really think about that for a second. There are no microscopes, no modern doctors. Your entire future, your ability to be part of society again, hinged on a public, ceremonial process. The stakes were incredibly high. This was literally your ticket back into the world.
So the moment a priest officially declared someone healed, it kicked off this very specific multi-part ritual. And this wasn't just, a quick checkup. This was a major public ceremony. It was a visible sign to the entire community that things were being set right again. The priest shows up with this very specific set of items. And this is not a random shopping list, not at all. You've got 2 live birds, which just scream life and freedom. You have cedar wood, which was known for resisting rot, scarlet material, a symbol of blood and life, and a hyssop branch, which was basically the ancient equivalent of a purification tool. This is the official toolkit, and you're going to see it pop up again. Okay, so this ceremony is just loaded with symbolism. The blood from the first bird is mixed with living or fresh running water. That creates the cleansing agent. The priest then dips the whole toolkit, including the live bird, into this mixture and sprinkles the person 7 times, 7 being that classic number for completion. And then, the best part, the live bird is set free, physically flying away, symbolizing the impurity being carried off for good.
And check this out. You can see exactly where these instructions come from. The source text is just incredibly precise. Every single action is spelled out. If you look, you can see the mentions of the 2 birds, the cedar, the scarlet, the hyssop. It's all there. It really shows you the level of detail they believed was necessary to move a person from a state of unclean to clean.
But hold on, it's not over yet. After the bird ceremony, the person has to go through this intense personal cleansing. They wash their clothes, shave off all their hair, we're talking everything, and bathe. Then they have to wait for 7 days. They're allowed back in the camp, but they can't go into their own tent yet. On that 7th day, they do it all over again. Shave everything, wash everything. Only then are they considered ceremonially clean.
Right, so even after all that, the process still isn't finished. This is the crucial final step. On the 8th day, they have to go to the main place of worship, the tabernacle, and present a series of offerings. This is what makes the final atonement and seals their full reintegration back into the community.
And this part is just remarkable. It shows this amazing social awareness baked right into the law. The standard offering was pretty steep, 3 lambs plus flour and oil. But the text makes a special provision for someone who's poor. If you can't afford the lambs, you could bring 2 turtle doves or pigeons instead. It made sure that everyone, no matter how rich or poor, had a way to complete the ritual.
Okay, now we get to one of the most distinct, most memorable parts of the entire ceremony. It's this very specific anointing ritual. After the sacrifices are made, the priest takes some of the blood and oil and physically marks the person, symbolizing their complete return to holy life.
The precision here is just incredible. The priest takes some blood from one of the offerings and dabs it on the person's right earlobe, right thumb, and right big toe. Think about that. It consecrates what they hear, the work of their hands, and the path they walk. Then he does the exact same thing again, but with holy oil, putting it right on top of the blood. It's this profound physical act of rededication.
And just when you think you've got it all figured out, the text takes this whole system, this worldview of diagnosis, quarantine, and purification, and applies it to a building. I mean, what on earth do you do when impurity, this plague, which was likely some kind of aggressive mold or fungus, shows up in your house?
And yup, here it is in the text itself. You can see how the law just pivots from people to property. The idea was that the health and purity of the community extended to the very walls of their homes. It lays out exactly what a homeowner should do if he sees these troubling greenish or reddish streaks that seem to be growing deep inside the walls.
So the process is super methodical. First, the homeowner has to report it. Then, and this is a really clever detail, the priest orders the house to be completely emptied before he even goes inside. Why? So that if the house is declared unclean, all their furniture and belongings won't be. Then he inspects the walls, and if he sees the signs, boom, the whole house goes into a 7-day lockdown.
So, the big question is, what happens after that week-long quarantine? Well, this is where things can get very, very serious. It all depends on what the priest finds when he comes back for that second inspection.
That 7-day period is basically a waiting game. It's all about observation. If the priest returns and the problem hasn't spread, great, the house can be cleansed and it's all good. But if it has spread, well, that triggers a whole new level of action. You can think of this as like ancient architectural surgery. They don't just wash the spot. They physically rip out the infected stones, haul them out of the city, and then scrape down the entire inside of the house. They patch it up with new stones and fresh plaster, giving the house one last chance. But if, after all of that, the plague comes back, the house is terminal.
And this is the final dramatic consequence. If the impurity can't be removed, the house is condemned. It's to be totally demolished. Every stone, every piece of wood, and all the rubble has to be carried to a designated unclean place. The structure is literally erased from the community because it's seen as an incurable source of impurity.
But what if the repairs worked? What if the house could be saved? Well, here's the kicker. The ritual to purify the house is exactly the same as the one for a person. The priest uses that same toolkit, 2 birds, cedar, scarlet, hyssop, and performs the same ceremony. It just shows how consistent this whole system was. The logic applied to people and places, all the same.
So after all of these incredibly detailed instructions for people, for clothing, for houses, the text itself wraps up by telling us why. What was the whole point of all of this? What was the goal?
And there it is, straight from the source. The purpose is to teach. These laws were a practical guide for everyone. They were designed to create clear, undeniable distinctions between what was considered clean and what was unclean, what was safe and what was unsafe. It was a complete system for maintaining order, health, and holiness in the community. And that kind of leaves us with a bigger thought, doesn't it? When you look past all the specific details that seem strange to us, the birds, the hyssop, what you really find is a society dealing with fundamental human anxieties. How do we protect our community? How do we draw a clear line between sickness and health? And maybe most importantly, how do we create a real, tangible path for people to find their way back home? These ancient laws were their very detailed answer.